explain the reasons for the sentence that I'm about to impose. And I'm going to begin with, there are generally four recognized purposes of sentencing. In this case, the overwhelming factor that the court has considered is the purpose of punishment, that is societal retribution and retribution for the family for the deaths of Christine Sullivan and Jenna Pellegrini. It is not, in this case, a debatable point that there is probably not a more serious, egregious, and heinous offense than what you, Mr. Verrill, committed on these two women. The extent of the brutality and the senselessness of these two murders is something this court has probably not seen in the 38 years that I've been involved in the criminal justice system. In Jenna Pellegrini's death, the multiple stabs to the neck and chest, the severe severing of the jugular vein and her carotid artery, 43 stabs in total to the back, 14 of which punctured her lungs. Many of those stabs, the force was so great that you fractured her ribs. The blunt force object to the face that fractured the floor of her skull, multiple fractures to her nasal bone. There were no defense wounds on Jenna Pellegrini. She was probably asleep when you started, but there is no doubt that she came, in my mind, that she became conscious and knew what was happening. And you continued your brutality in ways that I simply cannot imagine. Christine Sullivan suffered a blow to the back of her head that was so severe that it caused a fracture to the occipital bone, one of the most difficult bones in the human body to break. It is so thick. The blow was so severe that it fractured the floor of her skull on both sides. The stabs to her neck and chest, one through the lung, the pulmonary artery, and her aorta. There is evidence that she tried to defend herself, which means she was aware of what you were doing. The theory is at least that she was trying to get away from you and collapsed on the deck, and you continued to pursue her. Now, the defense may have a point that evidence of motive may not be all that strong because the jury's verdict was a reckless second. That is, you were aware of what you were doing and consciously disregarded it. Motive is generally a more important factor when we're talking about a premeditated and deliberate murder. But nevertheless, there was a motive for you doing what you did, and that was you were paranoid. Probably drug-induced, but maybe out of sheer cowardice that Jenna was an informant for the police and your drug dealing was going to come to an end. And you did this to protect yourself and Smoronk and the others who were involved in this business. It probably is not meaningful to speculate as to which of the two women you killed first. It makes most sense to me that you killed Jenna, your primary target, and then had no choice but to kill Christine, your friend, which makes almost no sense to me unless you're a coward, and that's what you did. There is significant evidence that you engaged in planning for these two murders. The painting of the garage windows, I am left with the only thought that that's where you either intended to kill them or dispose of their bodies. That's why you painted the windows. Locking the door before you committed the murders, and then, of course, turning off the cameras. After the murders, your efforts to clean up, not particularly successful, but still in some ways very thorough, which left significant difficulties for the police to understand the evidence. But nevertheless, what I was struck by, not just the extent of your cleaning efforts, and And although there was some evidence that you were in a significant mental state, maybe the night after or 2 nights later, so your mother takes you to the hospital. But what struck me was the next day you're seen on video and photographs, you are out shopping with your brother, and you appear about as calm as can be. You know exactly what you did, you know exactly what happened to these 2 women, and you appear to be going about it as if it's a normal day for you. With respect to the falsifying physical evidence charges, the sentence will group those 5 charges together, but they will be a consecutive sentence to reflect that additional criminal conduct and the seriousness of that conduct. Another factor in sentencing is specific deterrence. I don't believe that that is a strong factor in this case, as my sentence will likely result that you spend the rest of your life in prison, and therefore are not likely to commit a significant offense again. In terms of general deterrence, there is no doubt that my sentence will send a strong message to society that this level of brutality will be punished severely. Although the state does recommend certain rehabilitative components to the sentence, rehabilitation is not a significant factor here. You will have the opportunity to engage in programming while in prison, and the warden will have the discretion to reduce minimally your sentence. If I'm not mistaken, the statute allows up to 240 days on each of the sentences, so not significant reductions. And of course, I've taken into account the victim impact statements here. To the family, I know that there is nothing I can do here today that will help you recover the loss of your daughters, your sisters, your cousins, and the mother of the 2 children. I do hope that what it allows for you to do is to understand that there is a sense of justice for this senseless loss, that it may help you as you go forward, that the deaths of Christine and Jenna have been avenged by the system, but I fully understand and cannot begin to fathom the depths of your pain and what you must go through every day. I was struck by Mr. Pellegrini. I just, having a it is an incredible thing that you have chosen to honor your daughter's life in so many ways, including the tournament where her name will live on. That shows incredible strength and a desire to heal. And I know that all of you are trying to do the same. I hope that this sentence today furthers that cause for you. Mr. Verrill, you have destroyed so many lives in what you did. Obviously, the loss of the 2 victims and the effects, 2 young children will grow up without a mother. Mothers have to live without their daughters. Fathers have to live without their daughters. Siblings have to live without their sister. Cousins have to live without their relatives. For all of those reasons, and I have taken into account all of the factors of sentencing, the court imposes the following sentences. In charge ID 1438516C, on the offense of second-degree murder, reckless with extreme indifference, involving the death of Christine Sullivan, the court imposes a sentence to the New Hampshire State Prison for not more than life nor less than 45 years. There is added to the minimum sentence a disciplinary period equal to 150 days for each year of the minimum term of your sentence to be prorated for any part of the year. You have pretrial confinement credit in the amount of 2,657 days. This is a stand-committed sentence beginning today. The court recommends to the Department of Corrections that you screen or assess for drug and alcohol treatment needs. Restitution is imposed in the amount of $2,996 payable to the New Hampshire Victims' Compensation Fund through your correctional facility. The court does find that you do not have the ability to repay the state for the cost of your attorney. You are to participate meaningfully and complete any counseling, treatment, and educational programs as directed by your correctional authority, subject to the provisions of RSA 651A 22A. The Department of Corrections shall have the authority to award you earned time reductions against your minimum and maximum sentences for successful completion of qualifying programming, and you're ordered to be of good behavior. In Charge ID 1438518C, the second-degree murder, reckless with extreme indifference involving the death of Jenna Pellegrini, you are sentenced to the New Hampshire State Prison for not more than life, nor less than 45 years. This sentence is to be served as follows. Stand committed, commencing upon your release from 1438516C. This sentence is consecutive to 1438516C. All of the other terms are the same except for the amount of restitution, which is in the amount of $7,417, payable to the Victims' Compensation Fund in the amount of $5,125, and to Jeffrey Bryan in the amount of $2,292. With respect to charge IDs 1438519C to 523C inclusive, 5 counts of falsifying physical evidence. You are sentenced to the New Hampshire State Prison for not more than 7 or less than 3.5 years. There is no time for pretrial confinement credit, and if I didn't say it in the previous second-degree murder charge, the consecutive sentence, there is no time for pretrial confinement credit. This sentence commences upon your release from 1438518C. It is consecutive to 1438518C, and all 5 charges are concurrent with each other. And otherwise, the terms are the same, except there is no restitution on these charges. Those are the 3 state prison sentences that are. The lead sentence is 516C, the others are consecutive to it. I'm going to ask the court security officer if he could approach the bench and deliver to both the state and to Mr. Verrill's counsel the notice of sentence review. Mr. Verrill, sentence review is a panel of 3 Superior Court judges who, if you ask them to, and you must petition within 30 days, from today, they can review the sentence that I have imposed here today. They have the independent authority upon review of that sentence to either increase the sentence, decrease the sentence, or to keep the sentence the same. You can consult with your counsel about the sentence review process. Both parties have the right of sentence review. One further comment, the state did recommend that I allow law enforcement agencies to destroy the evidence or return it to its rightful owner. I have not ordered that, given that I anticipate a likely appeal and other post-trial litigation, so the evidence will be preserved. If there are any items that either the family seeks review or the state believes ought to be released, you can file a separate motion. Mr. Verrill also advise you that you have the right of an appeal to the New Hampshire Supreme Court on your convictions. I would suggest that you consult with your lawyer on the deadlines for appeal and consult Rule 7 of the Supreme Court rules. Typically, it is a 30-day period, and that period will begin when judgment is entered. I expect that judgment will enter today. And so, Mr. Verrill, if I ask you to stand for just a moment. The sentences that I have read into the record are hereby imposed. You are remanded to the custody of the sheriff to delivery to the state prison. Attorney Nye, are there any legal objections to the sentence?
No, Your Honor.
Attorney Hinckley, are there any legal objections to the sentence?
No. A procedural question, though, Judge. Do you want the state to file amended sentencing forms, or is the court going to do that on its own?
I have already written the sentencing forms. They'll be signed and filed today.